Story 1. I didn't install the camera for security. At least that's not what I told myself. It started as something practical. After moving into the house, I realized how quiet it was at night. Not the comfortable kind of quiet. Not the soft silence of a peaceful neighborhood. This was different. The kind of quiet that feels like something has stepped away and is waiting just outside the edge of your awareness. So I bought a single indoor security camera. Nothing expensive, just a small black device with motion detection and a live feed I could check from my phone. I placed it in the living room, angled toward the hallway. Not because I expected anything, just because it felt right to have something watching the part of the house I couldn't always see. The first few nights were normal. The camera worked exactly as expected. Motion alerts when I walked past, time-stamped clips, a clean, clear, live feed. I checked it a few times before going to bed. The hallway looked empty. The living room looked still. Everything felt accounted for. That helped. More than I expected. The first strange thing wasn't obvious. It was small. Easy to ignore. On the fourth night, I got a motion alert at 2:14 a.m. I was awake, lying in bed, scrolling on my phone. I hadn't moved in several minutes. I frowned slightly and opened the app. The live feed loaded. The living room was empty. The hallway was dark. Nothing moved. I checked the motion clip. It showed the same thing, no visible movement. Just an empty frame. I watched it twice, then closed the app. Probably a glitch. Cameras pick up light changes, shadows, even small shifts in exposure. Nothing unusual. The second alert came the next night, 2:19 a.m. Again, I was awake. Again, I had not moved. I opened the app immediately. The feed appeared. Empty room. Still hallway. I watched the recorded clip. Nothing. No shadow, no movement. Just stillness. But this time, something felt off. I couldn't explain it. The image looked normal, but my eyes lingered longer than before, as if I was trying to notice something just beneath the surface. I eventually closed the app, told myself the same thing. Glitch. The third night was different. I had fallen asleep early, the kind of deep, heavy sleep that comes after a long day. I woke suddenly. No clear reason, no sound, just awake. The room was dark. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I checked the time. 2:17 a.m. My phone screen lit softly in the darkness, and there was a notification waiting. Motion detected. Living room camera. I stared at it for a moment before opening the app. The feed loaded slowly, then appeared. The living room looked the same, still, empty. The hallway stretched into darkness. Nothing moved. But my chest tightened slightly, because something felt different. Not visible, not clear, just wrong. I tapped the recorded clip. It began a few seconds before the alert. The room sat in silence. Then, very faintly, the image shifted. Not movement in the room, the angle, just slightly, as if the camera had tilted. I frowned and replayed it. The shift was subtle, barely noticeable, but it was there. The perspective had changed. By a fraction. I sat up slowly in bed. The camera was mounted, fixed. It couldn't tilt. I watched the clip again. This time I noticed something else. The hallway looked longer. Not by much, just enough to feel stretched. I locked my phone.
The darkness in my bedroom felt heavier. The next morning, I checked the camera physically. It hadn't moved. still mounted exactly where I had placed it. Angle unchanged, position unchanged. I adjusted it slightly anyway, recentered the frame, made sure it was secure. Everything looked normal. Still, I couldn't shake the memory of that slight shift, that almost imperceptible change. That night, I left the camera app open on my phone, not because I expected anything, just to watch. Midnight passed quietly. The house settled into stillness. The refrigerator hummed occasionally. Pipes clicked softly in the walls. Ordinary sounds. Normal. At 1:53 a.m., I stared at the live feed. Nothing. At 2:03 a.m., still nothing. Then, at exactly 2:11 a.m., the screen flickered. Just once. I leaned closer. The image stabilized, but something had changed. The angle. Slightly lower. As if the camera were now looking from a different height. My pulse quickened. I stared at the hallway. The shadows looked deeper, the edges of the walls less defined. Then, slowly, something moved. Not in the room, in the perspective. The view shifted again, barely, as if the camera had taken a step forward. I froze. My breath slowed. The feed remained steady, but the hallway now looked longer, darker, deeper than before. I blinked hard. The image did not change back. I stood up from the bed, walked slowly into the hallway. The real hallway, the one in my house. It looked normal. Same length, same walls, same door at the end. I turned back to my phone. The hallway on the screen did not match the one I stood in. It was longer. And darker. And empty in a way that felt different. I stepped back into my bedroom, closed the door, locked it, sat on the edge of the bed, and watched the screen. At 2:18 a.m., the feed shifted again, this time more noticeably. The camera angle moved forward, as if something had picked it up, or as if it were no longer attached to the wall. The living room disappeared from frame, only the hallway remained. Centered. Deep. Endless. My heart pounded. I whispered, without thinking, "Stop." The feed did not respond. The hallway darkened. And then, for a single frame, something appeared at the far end. A shape, not clear, not detailed, just there. Then gone. I dropped the phone onto the bed. My hands felt cold. The room around me felt smaller, the silence heavier. I did not sleep that night. The next morning, I checked the camera again. Still mounted, still fixed, still exactly where it had always been. I opened the app. The live feed showed the normal living room, the normal hallway. No distortion, no change. The recorded clip from the night before was gone. No motion alert, no saved video. Nothing. As if it had never happened. I almost removed the camera that day. Almost. But something stopped me. Not curiosity, not denial. Something else. Something quieter. Something that felt like understanding. Because I realized something I hadn't considered before. The camera wasn't showing a glitch. It wasn't malfunctioning. It was showing something else. Something not exactly wrong. Just not from where I was standing. That night, I didn't wait for a notification. I opened the app at 2:10 a.m. and watched. The feed flickered, once, then stabilized. And the hallway began to change again.
The hallway began to change. Slowly. Not like something appearing, more like something being revealed. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in my hands, watching the live feed. The image had stabilized after the flicker, but it no longer matched what I knew. The hallway on the screen was deeper, longer. The darkness at the far end felt farther away, as if the camera were no longer looking at my house from inside it, but from somewhere else, somewhere slightly beyond it. I turned my head and looked at my real hallway. The bedroom door stood open just enough to see the familiar shape of the corridor. It looked normal. Same walls, same floor, same distance. I looked back at the screen. Different. Not dramatically, but enough. Enough that I could feel it. The kind of difference you don't measure with your eyes, you feel it in your chest. At 2:12 a.m., the feed shifted again. No flicker this time, no warning. Just a slow movement forward, as if the camera had taken a step. The living room was gone from view now, only the hallway remained. Centered. Deep. The shadows stretched unnaturally along the walls. My pulse began to rise. I whispered, barely audible. "That's not my house." The phone did not respond. The feed did not change. I stood slowly, walked toward the hallway, the real one. Each step felt heavier than it should. The air in the house felt still, thick, like something had settled into it. I reached the doorway, looked down the hall. Normal, still, empty. I lifted the phone beside my face, looked at the screen. The hallway there wasn't empty. Not exactly, it was just too deep, too dark, like it had more space than it should. At 2:14 a.m., something moved, far down the hallway. Not close, not clear. A slight shift in the darkness. I froze. My breath slowed. I stared at the screen. Nothing else moved, but the feeling remained. That something had just adjusted. I stepped back into my bedroom, closed the door, locked it. The sound of the lock felt louder than usual. I sat on the bed again. The phone screen lit my face in the darkness. The hallway on the screen remained, still, waiting. At 2:17 a.m., the feed changed again. But this time, it wasn't the angle. It wasn't the distance. It was the perspective. The camera was no longer facing straight down the hallway. It had shifted slightly to the side, as if someone, or something, was now holding it, standing just off-center, looking in. My hands tightened around the phone. No. The word escaped quietly. The image on the screen felt wrong now. Not because of what it showed, but because of where it felt like it was coming from. This wasn't my camera anymore. It wasn't mounted on the wall. It wasn't fixed. It was somewhere else. Looking into the hallway from a place I could not see. I looked up, toward my real hallway. Still empty, still silent, still normal. Then back at the screen. And for the first time, I realized something that made my chest go cold. The angle on the screen was not from the wall. It was from the hallway itself, a few steps in, looking back. I stopped breathing for a second, because that meant whatever was holding that perspective was inside the hallway, inside my house. At 2:19 a.m., the image darkened, the shadows deepened, the far end of the hallway disappeared into black. And then, slowly, something stepped forward. It wasn't clear, not detailed, not fully visible, just a shape, a darker part of the darkness, standing where nothing should be. I leaned closer to the screen,
my hands shaking slightly. The shape did not move closer. It did not retreat. It simply stood there, facing the camera. Then, the camera moved. A slow step forward. The hallway stretched further. The shape remained the same distance away, as if the space between them was not shrinking, as if the hallway itself was growing. I dropped the phone onto the bed, stood up. My body felt cold, heavy, wrong. I looked toward the hallway door. Closed, locked. I listened. Nothing. No footsteps, no movement. Just silence. I picked up the phone again. The feed was still active, still moving, still walking forward. The shape remained, waiting, always the same distance away. And then, something changed. The shape tilted slightly. Not forward, not back. Sideways, as if looking. Not at the camera. Past it. Toward something else. Toward me. My chest tightened. I slowly lifted my head, looked at my bedroom door. The handle did not move. The hallway beyond remained silent. But the feeling, the awareness, shifted.
It wasn't inside the phone anymore. It wasn't inside the hallway on the screen. It was here. At 2:22 a.m., the feed stopped moving. The image froze. The shape remained in the distance, still, watching. Then the screen flickered, once, twice, and returned to normal. The living room appeared again. The hallway returned to its correct length. The shadows softened. Everything looked exactly as it should. I stared at it, waiting. Nothing happened. No movement, no distortion, no shape. The house was quiet again. Normal. Still. I did not sleep that night. The next morning, I checked the camera. Still mounted, still fixed, still exactly where I had left it. The app showed no alerts, no recordings, no evidence. I unplugged the camera, left it on the table, face down. I told myself it was over, that whatever I had seen, whatever had happened, was done. But that night, at 2:11 a.m., my phone lit up. A notification. From the camera. Live view active. I froze. Slowly picked up the phone. The camera was unplugged, disconnected, off. Still, the app opened, the feed loaded. The hallway appeared, not from the wall, from inside it, looking out. And for the first time, there was no distance, no stretching, no darkness hiding it. The shape stood close now, just beyond the doorway, still, waiting. And behind it, faintly, I saw something worse. Another hallway, longer, darker, extending beyond it, as if the house I lived in was only the beginning of something much deeper. The screen flickered, and then, for a single second, the camera turned toward my bedroom door. Story 2. When you live alone long enough, you begin to memorize your home. Not just the layout, not just the rooms, but the spaces between them. The exact number of steps from your bedroom to the kitchen. The way the hallway light fades before reaching the far wall. The angle of shadows at different times of night. You don't think about it, but your body remembers. And because of that, you notice when something changes. The first time I saw the door, I thought I had forgotten something. It was late, not unusually late, just past midnight. The kind of quiet hour where the world feels paused, waiting for something to begin again. I had just turned off the television and stood in the living room for a moment, letting the silence settle. The house felt normal, still,
familiar. I turned toward the hallway and stopped. There was a door. It stood halfway down the hall, between the bathroom and the closet, a place where there had never been a door before. I didn't move at first. I just stood there staring at it. My mind tried to explain it quickly. Maybe I had never noticed it. Maybe it had always been there. Maybe the lighting made it look different tonight. These thoughts came automatically. Fast, efficient, comforting. But something deeper, something quieter, knew that wasn't true. I had walked that hallway hundreds of times. In daylight, at night, with lights on, with lights off. There had never been a door there. And yet now, there it was. It looked ordinary. Plain wood, off-white paint, a simple metal handle. No markings, no frame that stood out from the wall. It didn't look new. It didn't look old. It looked correct. As if it belonged there, as if it had always been part of the house. That was what made it worse. If it had looked strange, damaged, out of place, I might have reacted differently. But it didn't. It looked like something that had always been there. Something I had simply missed. I took a slow step forward, then another. My eyes remained fixed on the door. The hallway felt longer than usual, the shadows slightly deeper, the air still. I stopped a few feet away. The handle sat at a normal height. The doorframe aligned perfectly with the wall. Everything about it felt right. Except, it wasn't supposed to exist. I reached out, paused. My hand hovered just short of the handle. A strange thought crossed my mind. Not loud, not clear, just a feeling. If you open it, something will change. I pulled my hand back, stood there for a few seconds longer, then turned away. I told myself I would check it in the morning. That felt like the correct decision. Rational. Safe. Daylight would make everything clearer. I went to bed. Sleep did not come easily. The image of the door stayed in my mind. Clear. Still. Waiting. At some point, I drifted off. I woke at 2:03 a.m. No sound. No movement. Just awake. The room was dark. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I lay still, listening, waiting. Then, from the hallway, I heard something. A soft sound. Not a knock, not a scrape. A breath. Slow, measured, faint, coming from outside my bedroom door. My chest tightened. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The sound came again. A slow inhale, a longer exhale. I stared at the darkness. My mind raced through explanations. Pipes, air vents, wind, anything. But none of them fit, because the sound felt placed, directed, intentional. It sounded like someone standing just outside my door, breathing. I sat up slowly. The bed creaked softly beneath me. The breathing stopped. Silence. Complete. Heavy. I waited. Nothing. I stood. Walked quietly toward the bedroom door. Each step felt louder than it should. The air felt colder near the door. I reached for the handle. Paused. Listened. Nothing. I opened the door slowly. The hallway stretched out before me. Dim. Still. Empty. The door, the new door, stood halfway down the hall. Closed. I stepped out. The floor creaked softly beneath my weight. The hallway felt longer than it had earlier. Or maybe I was just more aware of it now. I approached the door again,
slower this time, more careful. The air near it felt different. Not colder, not warmer, just heavier. I stood in front of it, stared at the handle, and then, very faintly, from the other side, I heard movement. Not footsteps, not shifting. Something quieter, like someone adjusting their position just enough to be heard. My hand trembled slightly. I placed it on the handle. It was warm. I froze. The rest of the hallway was cold. The walls, the air, the floor, all cool, still, normal. But the handle felt like someone had just been holding it. I pulled my hand away instantly. My heartbeat quickened. The silence deepened. And then, from the other side of the door, a soft knock. Once. I stepped back. Another knock. Slower this time, as if it were waiting for me to respond. I didn't. The hallway felt like it was listening. The house felt aware. I backed away, step by step, eyes locked on the door. No more knocks came, but as I reached my bedroom, I heard something else, a sound I hadn't expected. The handle turning, slowly, from the other side. The handle began to turn, slowly, deliberately. I stood frozen in the hallway, a few steps back from the door. My eyes locked onto the metal handle as it moved, just slightly at first, then further. A soft click echoed through the silence. I couldn't breathe, not fully, not normally. The house felt different now, not just quiet, listening. The handle stopped, half turned. The door did not open. Silence returned, heavy, unmoving. I took another step back, then another. My body moved before my thoughts could catch up. I reached my bedroom, stepped inside, closed the door, locked it. The sound of the lock felt too loud, too final. I leaned back against the door, my heart pounding. The air in the room felt tight, like it had less space than before. I listened. Nothing. No footsteps, no breathing, no movement. Just silence. Minutes passed, or maybe longer. Time felt uncertain, stretched, unreliable. Eventually, I moved away from the door, sat on the edge of the bed, stared at nothing. The house remained quiet. Too quiet. At some point, exhaustion pulled me into sleep. Not deep, not peaceful, but enough. Morning came slowly. Light filtered through the window. Soft, ordinary. For a moment, everything felt normal. Then I remembered. The door. I stood up immediately, walked to the bedroom door, unlocked it, opened it. The hallway stretched out ahead, bright, still, familiar. And the door was gone. The wall stood where it always had, flat, unbroken, empty. I walked forward, slowly, carefully. I touched the wall. Cold, solid, real. No frame, no handle, no sign that anything had ever been there. I let out a breath I didn't realize I had been holding. A quiet laugh escaped me. Nervous, uncertain. Just a dream, I whispered. It felt reasonable, logical. Until I noticed something. The floor. Right where the door had been, the wood was different, slightly darker,
as if something had been resting there, pressed into place, for a long time. I stared at it. The shape wasn't obvious, but it was there, a faint outline, the size of a door. My chest tightened. I stepped back. The house felt quiet again, but not empty. That night, I didn't wait. At 11:48 p.m., I stood in the hallway, watching the wall. Nothing. At 12:12 a.m., still nothing. The house settled. The refrigerator hummed. Pipes clicked. Normal. At 12:47 a.m., the silence deepened. I felt it before anything happened. That shift. That quiet. Then, slowly, the wall changed. Not suddenly, not dramatically. It appeared, like something coming into focus. The door. Back in the same place, same size, same handle, same stillness. I didn't move, didn't react, just watched. This time, I didn't tell myself it wasn't real, because it was. The handle turned again, slowly. But this time, the door opened. Just slightly. A thin line of darkness appeared between the frame. No light came from inside, no sound. Just darkness. Deep. Heavy. Waiting. I stood still. My body felt cold, my thoughts quiet. Something inside me understood this was different now. The door wasn't just there. It was open. And something was behind it, watching, waiting, for me to do something. I took a step forward. The hallway felt longer, the air heavier. Another step. The darkness inside the door didn't move, didn't shift, but it felt aware. I reached the doorway, stood just outside it, and then, very softly, from inside, I heard something. A voice. Not loud, not clear, but familiar. It sounded like me. Come in. My chest tightened. My mind froze. Because the voice wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from inside the room. And it sounded exactly like me. I stepped back, fast, breathing uneven. No. The word escaped without thought. The door did not close. The darkness did not move. But the voice came again, softer this time. Closer. You already did. My stomach dropped because in that moment a memory surfaced. Not clear, not complete, but enough. A feeling of standing in that hallway before, of opening that door, of stepping inside, of something changing. I shook my head, stepped back further.
The hallway felt wrong now. Longer. Like it was stretching behind me. The door remained open. And then, slowly, from the darkness inside, something moved. Not stepping out, leaning, as if trying to see me better. I turned, ran back to my bedroom, closed the door, locked it. The house fell silent again. Morning came. The door was gone, the wall stood empty. But the outline on the floor was darker now, more defined. And my bedroom door was slightly open, even though I remembered locking it. I live in the house still. The door appears some nights, not every night. Sometimes it stays closed, sometimes it opens. I don't go near it anymore. But sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet, I hear it. A soft voice from the hallway.
from behind a door that shouldn't exist.